Hi guys, this is Andy for Campervan Tango. This video is going to be a collection of photos what I took while I was actually building the van. I'm going to do it in a series of videos at different stages of the build and try to go in depth of the materials and the products I used, how I did it, any tips. What we wanted out of a camper van was a fixed bed because we didn't want to be messing around making up the bed every night. So that was the main thing. And the second thing, we wanted to be able to stand up without banging his heads all the time. And we wanted a large wardrobe across the back so we could get as dance clothes, dresses and stuff in there. So we pretty much narrowed it down to two vans what we could squeeze the bed in transverse across the back, and that was a Citroen Relay and a Renault Master, because those vans are wide enough to get the transverse bed across the back. So in the end we ended up going for a 2014 Citroen Relay Enterprise, which has got all the cruise control, the air conditioning and stuff. So when we decided on the plan, we managed to draw up a 3D model on SketchUp, which is a pretty good program really, because it's free as well, and you can sort of visualize how you're going to do it. So the first job was take out the bulkhead, which was pretty straightforward. Just unscrew the bolts, pull it out. It's pretty simple. It took about half an hour. Then the next job was to give the van a really good clean in the back, get all the grime off, and take out all the old ply paneling and get all the muck from all the nooks and crannies to make it a lot easier for when you come to start insulating and stuff. So once I'd got it all nice and clean inside, I decided to take some photos of the actual inside of the van, so I would be able to refer back to some pictures and stuff to be able to see where the van ribs are for when I'm screwing any panels on, because once everything's hidden it's just nice to have something to refer back to. And I took all measurements of the floor as well, the ribs, where it actually started and finished, because obviously later on in the build when you need to start drilling holes in the floor for pipes and vents and the gas dropout holes and stuff, it's nice to be able to have a reference point, so at least you might have a good chance of not hitting anything. The other quick and easy job what we did when we actually went over to buy the van, we sourced a single passenger front seat, which was in the same finish as the driver's seat, so it was pretty good finding that to be able to pick it up at the same time as picking the van up. And that was a pretty straightforward job, just literally undo the bolts, take it out, put the new one straight in. The new one came with the single subframe base as well, so that was pretty much just straight in. So when we came to doing the floor, I read a little tip on a forum on the SBMCC website forum that when you're using the battens and the sticks or adhesive, it needs to have a bed in between. You can't really compress it down for it to have a good bond. You need at least a minimum of 2mm thickness, and it was putting in a little tile spacer in between. So when you actually forced the batten down, you didn't fully compress the adhesive. And that was a really good tip. So all the blobs of the adhesive what I put in, I put a little tile spacer in between and then forced the batten on, and then that ensured a good bond for the batten. So what I did was I used the battens and did all around the perimeter of the floor, and crossway battens which would accept the 8x4 sheets of ply going crossways, so it was spaced to take the 4-foot boards, and I used 3 boards. And then they was basically, the insulation was stuck down as well, and then the ply was just screwed straight on into the battens. Another good point is once you've decided on the appliances what you're going to have, you're going to need to run a channel across the floor to accept your 12-volt cables and your 240 cables. So I run conduit through the insulation and through the battens, and you have to keep the 12-volt and the 240-volt separate, so you have to run them in 2 different conduits, not in the same one. That's good practice. All the joints in the insulation are all taped to try and create a vapor barrier to stop condensation and stuff going through and getting behind the insulation, and obviously getting trapped there and causing problems over time, just getting wet. So when it came to fitting the roof lights, because we was having a wardrobe across the back, I had to push the roof light forward a little bit, so I had to remove the rib on the roof, the strengthening rib. But most of these are just like anti-vibration ribs, and it wasn't a problem cutting this one out. And when you put the framework in for the roof light, it strengthens it back up anyway, so it's not a problem. And I've seen other people have done the same, and it's not caused any issues. So when I started fitting the roof light, I started by making a 2x1 batten frame to the size of the cutout what I needed for the roof light, and I made sure it was square and that the roof light actually fit inside the frame. And the frame was then stuck with stick saw to the inside of the roof and propped up and left to dry once it was dry. So what I did was drill 10mm holes in each corner, and then on the outside of the van, cover to protect the paintwork of the roof, join up the holes, and then cut the hole out with a jigsaw, just following the lines to each hole. And once you've got this cut out, you need to clean up the edges and paint just to protect it from going rusty. I filled all the inner edges of the framework where I'd actually cut out the roof, and once that goes off, it really strengthens up the roof then what's actually stuck to the batten. The roof on my van had ribs on the roof, so it wasn't a flat surface for the roof light to stick to. So what I had to do was use PVC infill pieces to go in between the ribs and stick those in, and then that made a flat surface then for the roof light to be able to stick straight down onto that. But what you really need to do is you really need to clean up the roof area to make sure it's got all the contaminants off, so you're going to get a good bond with the stick saw. What I also did with my roof light is that the type of plastic what they use when they manufacture the roof light, it bleeds a type of oil, and what you need to do is wire wool the edge where you're going to be sticking with the stick saw to the roof. So wire wool that and then clean off with panel wipe to get rid of all the residue and the debris, and then it's ready for the stick saw to be applied. So once the roof light is put into place, it's just literally screwed in from the inside, but not over tightened because they're only like sort of plastic clips, which you then just screwed into the batten just to pull it down enough. But obviously you still need that little gap of at least a minimum of 2mm. So once you've got that in, you just need to seal up all around the outside, make it as neat job as you can, but making sure you've got a full good coverage of beading around the edge. At the end of the day, nobody's going to be really looking up there, so you better to have a proper good seal than actually making it just look pretty. So when it comes to insulating the roof, I used plastic like rock wool insulation, loft insulation, but it's the stuff what's not really itchy and bad for you. And I forced this into all the little nooks and crannies and stuff in the roof. So when it comes to fitting the battens on the roof, I used the same technique with the using the tile spacer with the adhesive, but I cut little cuts onto the top of the batten about 1/2 inch apart, and this really eased the bending of the batten to follow the curvature of the roof. And then I just used props to prop it up and left it overnight until the glue had gone off. And there wasn't fixed with screws or anything. They were literally just stuck up there, and it's never been a problem. So before you put your insulation in for the roof, you want to get all your cabling what you need for your lights. And I used the 12-volt 14-strand cable for all my LED lighting, but obviously you need to use the proper rated cable for what you're going to need for your specification of lights. Just check your specification sheet and just match it up to make sure it is capable to do the job. So once I got all my cabling in, I used 25mm king span or equivalent, cut it to go in between the ribs and the battens, and stuck it up again with stick saw. You could also use a little bit of expanding foam, but you have to go really easy on the expanding foam because it can distort the skin on the outside of the van. A lot of people have used it in between in the ribs. I actually used a little bit as well, but you can deform the outside skin of the van when it expands, so you've got to be really careful. So once I've got all the insulation in, I taped up all the joins again, and this again is just to try and create a vapor barrier to stop any moisture getting behind. So for the ceiling, I used 6mm 8x4 sheets of ply. I used stick saw and screwed as well, but I could have just got away with just sticking it and propping it up and leaving it to go off, and then it would have saved me the trouble of having to fill all the holes and sand it and prep it for painting.